A players want to work, like you said, for squared away, exceptional companies that have incredibly high standards, that are investment grade. They will line up to work for you. Even though I know a lot about your hiring process, it's really tough, right? A players, that doesn't scare them. Both of you guys would do whatever it took to work for a company like Fast Slow Motion, because you're like, hey, I'm an A player. I'll hold the standards hard because I'm special forces, right? So I just got to tie back to talent and culture. Be meticulous, be rigorous, because A players run towards special forces.
This podcast is brought to you by Fast Slow Motion, a team of expert consultants that have helped hundreds of growing businesses build scalable systems on the HubSpot and Salesforce platforms. To learn more, visit fastslowmotion.com.
Welcome to the Fast Slow Motion podcast, where we teach you how to build a business you love while enjoying your life. I'm your host, Sam Donaghy. If you're just joining us today, we'll be continuing the conversation that we began in our last episode with Zane Tarence, who is a partner and a managing director of Founders Advisors, a merger and acquisition firm serving middle market companies in a wide variety of industries, and John Burdett, the founder of Fast Slow Motion, which helps companies build scalable business operations on platforms such as Salesforce and HubSpot. So let's dive back in for part 2.
So let's go to reason 6. Your culture does not attract or keep the best people. And it's really about the management team and how you recruit them and retain them. So let me throw you a softball. Why are people so important?
And John, people say, you're wasting my time. Why are you saying this stuff? We know it. Every business talks about this. Let me tell you why I'm saying it. Because our actions don't prove we really believe this. And as a banker, I see over and over your value. I see hard numbers, John, to when you have a team that is focused, that is excellent, that can communicate in a candid way, that it's not about the CEO's ego. It's about what is best for the company. I see Wharton and Harvard and Stanford doctors and MBAs pay up for those companies. You know why? They know exceptional people create exceptional results. I don't think I've interviewed business owner after business owner, worked with them, see due diligence after due diligence. John and Sam, great people get it done. And as we know as owners, our people are the ones that deliver on our organization's promise, our brand promise, right? I heard a CEO the other day, we were in a management meeting with a bunch of private equity groups, and they asked him a question, and he said about his customers. He said, well, we're not customer-centric. And I first said, oh, shit. He said, we're not customer-centric. We're people-centric. Our people employed because they deliver what we serve. So the math shows it, John. It's just pure math. I used to kind of say culture 7 years ago, kind of fuzzy. It's not fuzzy anymore. They can measure it. They've looked at companies that produce outsized return on invested capital for investors, private companies, always about the people. And here's another thing I've seen. And you'll read this in books and stuff like it. And John, you've helped me with this. I think Michael on your team said this the other day. I was watching y'all in a presentation. Once you have processes and systems for your people, that's the best gift for your B players and for your A players. A solid, trusted, repeatable, definable process is gift. But then guess what you can do? You can hold the organization accountable to what the investors want. I want accountability that I have the predictability, the operational knobs to really control output. It's you don't have the right processes and then the right people, you cannot deliver on economic outcomes. So I'm just saying the numbers are there. It allows you to have accountability and great people. I think we always know this. And if I look back on people, A players versus B players, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying an A salesperson isn't 30% better than a B salesperson. They're 10 times better. John, I'm talking about all the time about you and your team and how I experienced you. A true IT architect, developer, one that understands DB, the database, the use, how the requirements. They're not 50% better than a B developer. They're 10 times better. Their code runs like a stolen dog. So can I just say, I rest on the math. People matter.
Zane, I read in your book that you say recruiting is worth obsessing over, and I really like that because I'm the recruitment director here at Fast Slow Motion, and you say that recruiting should never stop, right? It's a continuous thing. So can you tell me why you hold that position?
Yes, because you never know where you'll find talent. People say, are y'all hiring? Yes, we're hiring. I don't care about the budget. If the right talent comes up, they will add 10 times value to my companies. I don't care. If the right talent comes up, you get after it. And it's entirely on and off, Sam. You couldn't miss that amazing person. And guess what? If you're growing, John and Sam, another reason to grow, you always need that talent. You can forge staff because you're going to grow into it. So never turn it off. Organizations that turn it on and off, I find they're not as consistent in talent. Great question.
Yeah, one of the best investments we ever made at Fast Slow Motion was hiring Sam to be our director of recruiting. And we have, I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but thousands of people that Sam and the team interview every year, and we hire, 1 or 2% of those. So it's harder to get into Fast Slow Motion than some Ivy League schools, but we've dedicated a process, a system to attracting the right people. And then they start lining up. We've got a backlog right now of people. I'm really motivated to grow right now because we've got a backlog of people that want to come work here. And I want to have a seat in the bus where they can do it. And it creates a pipeline of talent development. So that moves into talent development. And when you work that stuff out, you create a nice little flywheel where the business kind of runs itself and the people perpetuate the culture. It's not the leaders of the organizations. It's the individual people that are enforcing the culture, creating that meritocracy and ensuring the level of excellence never drops. And that's a beautiful thing. The final thing I'll say on that is, and I tell our team this all the time and probably don't tell them enough, is the greatest blessing I've had at Fast Slow Motion is to see what our team does and how much better they do it than I did. There's nothing better to see that play out. And you're like, wow, I never dreamed this big. I never thought it could be done this well. I never thought we could pull it all, that kind of stuff off. That's very fulfilling as a leader of an organization.
John, I love it. And that's on purpose. I'm sorry. I got to use one other point. Both of you mentioned. One of the people ask me, I need 17 reasons. I don't care if I ever sell. I've got enough money. I don't want to do. What's the number one reason? I ought to be 17 reasons. I won't say, I don't care what my valuation is. I'm saying, first of all, if you have anybody that owns auctions or your people, you should care about them. Because I guarantee you their spouse cares about how successful Fast Slow Motion is. And here's the number one reason. A players want to work, like you said, for squared away, exceptional companies that have incredibly high standards, that are investment grade. They will line up to work for you. Even though I know a lot about your hiring process, it's really tough, right? 8 players, that doesn't scare them. Both of you guys would do whatever it took to work for a company like Fast Slow Motion, because you're like, hey, I'm an A player. I hope the standards are hard because I'm special forces, right? So I just got to tie it back to talent and culture. Be meticulous, be rigorous, because A players run towards special forces.
Love it. All right, let's go over one more and then we'll wrap this thing up. This has been very, very valuable, Zane. Thank you again so much for sharing all this wisdom. So region 7, which is your company's competitive advantages, do not protect or grow its market share. And it's around barriers to entry. So obviously this is if you've been to business school, there's a lot on this. It tends to be academic a lot of times and theoretical. Talk to us about what this really means in a practical standpoint and why it's so important.
John, it's one of my favorite metrics now. And I know, MBAs like you from Emory, right?
Yeah.
From Emory. Y'all have whole courses on this. Michael Porter, wrote volumes on it. Practically on this. I love this because you can't argue with it. It's only as good as your record says you are. Look at practically If you truly have a competitive advantage, and we all think we do. If you ask me about the bank, our bank, I'd say, oh man, we have a competitive advantage. Look at this, look at the net promoter score, look at this. Nah, I'll look at one thing, John, and that's your gross margin as compared to your cohorts. What are you doing? What's your cost of services, cost of goods sold, and what's your pricing model? If you can create the same level product, service, value for your client at the same cost your client, your competitors have, but you can price it higher, that tells me you must have intellectual property. You must have, there's something competitive you have that the market doesn't have. If you can produce the same level quality of service and do it for a lot less, selling at the same price, you have a competitive advantage. I don't know if it's your recruiting. I don't know if it's your secret weapon of sound, being able to recruit the right people. I just know there is a competitive angle there. I see private companies all day, every day, that the investors are doing due diligence. When they see an outsized gross margin, they automatically check the box, competitive business. Now, they're going to ask you, John and Sam, we've noticed fast slow motion has an incredible gross margin. Why? And then you get to talk about your people, your intellectual property, your documentation of your processes. So competitive advantage is critical. I want to know you have it, because if you don't have it, you're not going to get market share. You're not going to grow. But that's what I want to know. And what it does too is, John, you mentioned this, it squeezes out your barrier to entry. Why can't somebody just come in my business in a bank, say, we're going to start a regional bank for founders, people that don't bank, and just compete with me? Why couldn't they just hire my people and compete with me? That's your competitive advantage. So I ask every person I talk to, what is your competitive advantage? And John, fast, slow motion. You know, what y'all created, what you've done. You say, well, people can figure out HubSpot and how to deliver amazing consulting services. They used to be all these amazing. Why don't they just come hire your people and compete with you? So I'm going to put you on the spot. We haven't talked about this, but I know you well enough. What makes fast, slow motion where you would sit there and go, giddy up. I'll give you my workout. I'll give you our processes. I ain't scared of you, because this is what we do that you can't greenfield.
Yeah, so great question, Zane. We joke about this all the time. It's really easy to start a professional services firm, really, really hard to scale one. And honestly, it's extremely true. So that's why you see a lot of small firms, 5 to 15 people, and you see a lot of big companies. So you have the Deloittes of the world and things like that, who are huge consultancies. And the reason is you have to make the transition of doing the work that you're doing to focusing on building people, hiring, recruiting them, and then developing them. So that you can build a team atmosphere, and the team's doing the work and you're not doing the work. At the same time, you got to develop those same disciplines on the sales and marketing side, but you got to keep the work coming in. A lot of professional services firms get so busy and they stop focusing on sales, and then that business dries up, and then they wake up and they don't have any sales activity because they haven't focused on it. And so it's a combination of focusing on those disciplines and systems and processes and being very intentional about where you want to go. And then finally, I would say that the secret sauce that I've learned after working and helping build a couple professional services firms is aligning compensation to the outcomes that you want in the business. You know, we talk about all the time, you can't control the outcomes, so you can control the inputs, but you can make sure the inputs get the results or the outcomes you want, and you tweak the inputs along the way. So one thing we do here at Fast Slow Motion is everybody is on a variable comp plan and make more money than they can elsewhere, but it's all variable, aligned to their role and what they can control. So they're highly motivated to make sure clients stay on board. They're highly motivated to make sure new clients are coming in. They're highly motivated to make sure, do we really need to add another team member, because they have to pay for them, and they're not just asking for free resources because they have to pay for them and stuff like that. And so that system really becomes our competitive advantage. It makes it really, really, really difficult for our competition to keep up. And we see it. I mean, you mentioned it before, is like when some of those rock stars come along, you may not be hiring, but if they raise their hand, they say they want to come work for you, you make a spot for them. We've had that happen over and over and over again. And a lot of them, they were just frustrated that they were outselling the delivery capability of the organization, or, the projects they were on, were 3-year projects and they were doing the same thing over and over again. They weren't learning and growing and stuff like that. And so we're able to offer those kinds of things. So there's some of the stuff that we focus on at Fast Slow Motion to help create a, somewhat of a competitive advantage in a space where there's technically very little barrier to entry. I mean, you just basically have a computer and internet connection and you can start doing some of the work that we do.
I asked Vista Equity 3 months ago, what's the number one private equity probably investor in software? If you could share something, would you do a webcast with me? Share something in a playbook that you're seeing effect, enhance your portfolio investments in software. What's the number one thing in a playbook you want to talk about? John, they said compensation systems. They said that with 8 players, culture retention. Again, you say, oh, it's all about the money. Not all about the money. Just giving that A player a way to feel appreciated. Like you said, hey, I cannot sell like I'm able to sell because I'm outpunted the delivery ability of my company. That is the one thing they said they would want to share is the power of compensation systems. So that is absolutely a barrier to entry.
Yeah, and at some point we probably need to do a podcast on it because I think it's a missing piece. It's an alignment tool and it allows you to really create a system and a flywheel for your business. And it allows your people to make way more money than they ever could before. And, but they're accountable to the work that drives the profitability in the business. That's the real key there, because if you get those two out of whack, nobody wins in that scenario. And so it's a beautiful thing when you get it working. And yeah, definitely we'll flag that as something we can talk about in the future.
Hey, Zane, would you mind if I ask one more question?
Sure.
Obviously, your specialty is technology. So what really excites you about this industry right now?
The confusion, the mystery. Wherever there's mystery, there's margins. I could get upset about this because AI is really pausing the whole software investment community because it's like, what's it going to do? I got to be careful about investing. But I just know for guys like me that aren't that talented, but I'm scrappy, whenever everything's up in a cloud of dust, everybody's running around scared, there's opportunity to create wealth. So I'm probably most excited about all the disruption because, do I think there's opportunity.
Yeah, that's so good. Challenge is great opportunity. A lot of people get scared with challenges, and I get excited. I was like, there's going to be a way to figure this out, and it gets rid of the competition, which is also makes it easier to do business. So the people that aren't doing it the right way won't last when challenges pop up.
And John, like I'm talking about, nothing will show an excellent institutional grade business, investment grade business, more than tribulation.
Oh yeah, yes. Stress test that business a little bit and see how they do.
The character of our kids or ourselves put me under a little pressure, made me get hungry and miss a couple nights sleep and see how I'll fly. Right. So I love this because it just mashes out the great companies and you just become so bad.
Yeah, and that's what I'm excited about in today's environment and maybe some encouragement to the business owners and entrepreneurs out there. We've kind of lived in a fake economy for the last 2 or 3 years because of COVID and all the money injected. It was easy to do business no matter what you were doing, basically. Now it's a lot more challenging, but that's fun. All right, let's figure this thing out. It's gonna pare away the competition so that you can really thrive. And those that aren't passionate, that don't have grit, that aren't willing to be resilient, as you talked about, they're not going to make it. And this is the opportunity to take advantage of those things. So it's actually fun times if you have the right perspective.
I love it. And John, just that encouragement. I see a lot of entrepreneurs right now, they're very down, especially in the tech space. It's just not, it's not working easy. This is an encouragement. And tell our kids that. Our kids that are graduating from college, grandma, there's no opportunity. You see the news. No. If you are exceptional in today's economy, you're going to get to the top of the line fast. So be encouraged, be excited, focus on being solid, person of character, intentional, read more, listen more, upgrade who you hang around. It is a beautiful time in the history for winners.
Well, Zane, we always like to wrap up each of our episodes with a quote that really sums up what we've been talking about or that's personally meaningful to you. So is there a quote or some wisdom that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Man, I love quotes. Quotes actually have changed my life. Have changed the trajectory of my life because it reminds me. Here's, I think, one for today, talking about being intentional and on purpose. I stole this from somebody, but I actually had it in my whiteboard. It's not about the harvest we reap today, but it's about the seeds we sowed. Do those inputs every day, and the harvest will automatically come.
Love that. You're betting on yourself. You can only control the seed planting process, not the harvesting process.
Control it. That's up to God.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's awesome. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks again to our guests, John and Zane, for joining us. For our listeners, we hope that the insights shared in today's conversation shed some light on what investors and buyers are looking for in a business and what business owners should be improving on to build a strong investment-grade company, whether you plan on selling or not. Remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, or you can find archived episodes at fastslowmotion.com/podcast.